Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US has urged China to increase pressure on Myanmar following the military junta's execution of 4 democracy activists.
There can be no business as usual with this regime.
At a news conference, Ned Price called on countries to ban sales of military equipment to Myanmar and refrain from any action that would lend the junta any international credibility. It comes as hundreds of people protested outside the Myanmar embassy in Bangkok against the ruling military's execution of 4 democracy activists, as international outrage and condemnation grow. Large crowds of demonstrators chanted slogans and called for justice, while holding portraits of the executed activists and the deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi of the National League for Democracy Party. A spokesman for the ruling military defended the executions, saying they were legal and had been imposed due to the activists aiding terror acts by a civilian resistance movement. EU energy ministers have agreed for their countries to cut gas use in case Russia halts supplies. European Union ministers met to approve a weakened emergency proposal to curb their gas demand, with members agreeing that countries should voluntarily reduce gas use by 15% from August to March. The deal states gas demand reduction would become mandatory if security of supply reaches crisis levels. The Japanese government has carried out the death sentence of a man who went on a stabbing rampage in 2008. Tomohiro Kato, who was then 25, ran a truck into a busy Tokyo shopping district before going on a stabbing rampage, killing 7 people and injuring 10. Japan remains one of the few developed countries to retain the death penalty, despite international criticism. Taiwan's president has boarded a naval warship for only the 2nd time in her 6 years in office. Tsai Ing-wen lauded the military's determination to defend the island while overseeing its largest annual naval and air exercises amid rising military pressure from China. As part of Taiwan's annual Hankwang exercises, 20 warships, including frigates and destroyers, fired shells to intercept and attack a would-be invading force off Taiwan's northeast coast, while fleets of F-16 fighter jets and domestically manufactured Ching-Kuo fighters launched air strikes. French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in Cameroon for a diplomatic trip around 3 African nations. After Cameroon, Macron plans to visit Benin and Guinea-Bissau. Macron is expected to meet with Cameroon's President Paul Biya and various members of the Cameroonian civil service. This trip to Cameroon, the first since Macron's re-election in April, will focus on the food crisis caused by the war in Ukraine and will also be an opportunity to prepare for the next Africa-France summit. Tunisia's President Kais Saied has been celebrating his apparent victory in a referendum on a new constitution that gives him almost unlimited powers. Mr. Saied appeared in front of jubilant supporters after an exit poll indicated more than 90% of those who had voted had supported the president's plan. The turnout was only 27.5%, with main opposition parties boycotting the poll. The president's opponents say his changes would just entrench the personal powers he seized a year ago. And finally, a 560-million-year-old fossil found in the United Kingdom has been identified by scientists as the earliest known animal predator. A group of paleontologists went to the site in 2007 to examine a site containing more than 1,000 fossils. Scientists have since been able to date the fossil by analysing radioactive material in the surrounding rock, identifying it as belonging to the Ediacaran period. The animal is related to a marine group which includes jellyfish and corals, pushing the known existence of that group back by 20 million years.
The early history of animal life is very poorly understood, and that's mostly because there are very few fossils preserved at that time. This fossil pushes back one of the modern groups of animals by 20 million years further back into time, and that's the group that included the sea anemones, the jellyfish and the corals.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.